Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez. Happy Monday, and I do mean that in the biggest way possible because we have our guys Glenn and Stu back in the building. Yay!
Yeah, we're awesome.
We missed you guys.
Yeah,
we missed you. Well, I was clapping.
Yeah, I wasn't. I'm not an egotist like you, Stu.
That's a fair point.
And we are also joined again by Eric July, YouTube host Eric July. Thank you for being here again, Eric. Don't be too intimidated by these two. All right, Glenn, what's your top story?
I want to say it's pluralism and the new system of government that is being created in Silicon Valley. And it's all right under the noses of Washington, and they all know it.
All right, Stu.
Every time Ilhan Omar speaks, I learn something new. No exception, yes,
Really?
this weekend. So
Wow.
I got some new material from Ilhan, which was pretty interesting.
All right, Eric.
Of course, Democrats are looking to raise the minimum wage again to $15 an hour, so we'll be discussing that.
Obviously, a lot to get into over here. First, we want to thank our sponsor, American Financing.
You're looking to buy a new home, American Financing is the place. If you're looking to refi a home, American Financing is the place. You're looking for a consolidation loan, American Financing is the place. Here's why. They don't work for a bank. They don't take commissions. They don't have upfront fees. They don't have any of that. So when you are going in to get a loan, most places, the bank is on the side, unbeknownst to you, saying, try to get them into this loan. If you do, we'll give you an extra $1,000 or whatever it is. American Financing doesn't do that. In fact, like Stu, he'll come in with some scheme and he'll be like, could I get a loan where they're paying me?
Apparently not. In case you want to ask.
Yeah.
I'll save you some time.
Spoiler alert.
But it was a risky idea that Stu presented to them. Some bank out there was willing to go for it. They weren't, because they try to make sure that you're not living on the street in 2 years. Just saying.
I've already made it 2 years.
You could be fired at any time here. American Financing. Call 800-906-2440, AmericanFinancing.net.
All right, Glenn, your top story. You are back finally. Got a lot to get into.
Yeah,
With social
same old stuff, but some real clarity here. There's a story that was published on Spin Quark today. That's a new website started by a friend of mine. I can't believe I'm promoting it because it actually is a news site, kind of like the Drudge Report or the Blaze. But I've never been a good businessman. So let me just promote this. Here's the thing. Social government. This is much further down the road than any of us thought. I've been saying for a long time, there's going to come a time when tech and the government begin to work together. And when that happens, we're doomed. Pluralism is what's happening. Now, let me define it again in case you missed my show a few minutes ago. Pluralism is the fundamental belief that government cannot be trusted with the allocation of power, primarily because of the belief that citizens are not smart enough or moral enough to elect officials who will ensure the government acts morally. Well, that's exactly what we saw from the leadership of Facebook and Twitter and also Google, where they were standing after the election and saying, we can't let this happen again. Okay? We have to stand because we can't let this happen again. So they've put in algorithms, and we've all talked about it, to silence any voice that disagrees with them. What we haven't seen is a long list, and I mean a long list of the people who are involved in this. You have the doxing from Facebook. They won't get rid of Antifa terrorists, but they will dox the guy who slowed the tape down for Nancy Pelosi. Wonder why? It was taken off within minutes because the policy director at Facebook was Nancy Pelosi's chief of staff before she went to Facebook. She's now, her job is directing policy at Facebook. The head of the algorithm policy at Facebook worked for Hillary at the State Department. The head of content policy worked for Hillary's presidential candidate. Goes on and on and on. There's hundreds of these people. Let me give you this. Laura Southern's documentary on the border was removed within 24 hours without any reason or any explanation. But the policy manager at YouTube, before becoming a policy manager, was employed by Hillary for America. Was also a manager in Obama's campaign before that. YouTube's global content policy lead previously worked for the DNC. The person responsible for growing the next generation of stars at YouTube worked in the Office of Digital Strategy at the White House under Obama. The person that is in charge of developing the careers of YouTube creators was the director of video for Obama at the White House. The people that are helping the careers of creators, well, Vox, the company that got Steven Crowder demonetized, was one of the companies that YouTube spent $20 million to hire them to do educational videos. This is a cesspool. And all of the people from government are leaving their jobs in government and they're going here. This is a shadow government that unless they lose their platform status, we will have a shadow government. The First Amendment does not apply to these companies. So they want to say you're, a hate monger and racist and take you off the platform. They can. No questions asked, they can. Nothing in the Constitution will protect you. Government can't do that. But the government is now in bed through loose relationships. No, they're not working for the government anymore. They worked for the government forever, then left, and now they're in charge of policy. I'm telling you, this is so concerning, and I don't think enough people are paying attention to it. This is going to change the election. If it is left to its own devices, if we don't stop these people, they will change the algorithms, and America will be influenced whether they know it or not. And we have one of the biggest minds at Harvard actually tracking it. And he's a Hillary supporter, and he is ringing the bell. Warning, warning, warning. This election is not going to be fair because of pluralism.
Stu, you want to weigh in?
It's a tough one because, we obviously know that people who are well connected in government, especially on the Democratic side, go to big tech companies. Not a huge shocker. Nope. I mean, this lays it out in a detail that's excruciating and shows how far it goes. And I'm nervous from the other side in that I don't want to tell any of these companies what they could do with their own platforms. They are theirs. They built them. They get to do whatever they want with them.
But I don't want to protect them.
Right, and I think that's really the part where I keep coming back to is that they should be able to, let's just say a religious organization wanted to start a social network, and they wanted to say no one can swear, no one can post porn, no one can.
Everybody on it has to be right. Everyone has to be of this relationship.
Religion, right? Religion, exactly. I think they should be able to do that.
Me too.
That statement should be clear up front.
Is that it's not clear half the time, and I think that's where, at least from my personal standpoint, because I'm a content creator, where I'd rather attack it is that there are terms of service that they are supposed to acknowledge. We tend to look at that on one side, hey, they can just get you up out of there. But every creator, we all, check a little box that says, yes, we agree to this. And I think we need to be holding their feet to the fire and saying, hey, you need to be a little more clear. You said right here that you should be a little more clear if you're going to ban us, if you're going to shadow ban us, if you're going to put something in the algorithm that's going to put us at the bottom of whatever search result that we have for Google. So I'm right there with you that, as a hardcore libertarian like myself, I don't want to obviously get the government involved, but it's the great point that they are sort of working together, and we should acknowledge it.
And here's the thing. If you give them the platform status, they are not supposed to edit. Everyone's supposed to be involved. They have the platform status and the publisher status. So the government is protecting them from lawsuits, because we should be able to sue them and say, excuse me, and others should be able to sue and say, you left this on there, that's caused this problem. That we're protecting them as a government. I don't want them broken up. I don't want them told what to do. I do not want the United States of America giving them protection. If they were a platform and never edited, you'd never hear a peep out of me. Protect them. But they're editing. That's got to stop.
If they want that protection from legal action and everything else, there has to be some mechanism for people, content creators, that they begged to come on this platform to say, please build this platform for us. They have to have a way to be able to get some sort of justice within the platform. I mean, people have spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of their creative license to be able to go in there and build this platform for these companies. And then they're not at all responsible to the people who actually built the platform themselves and the ones making them all the money.
Look, the thing is this is exactly what happened at Tokyo Rose. The original woman, one of 7, but the only one that paid any debt to society, and she didn't have a debt to pay. She really thought, oh, well, I'll go to the press and I'll get justice because I was actually helping the Allies. I'm an American citizen. They'll find this a great story. Well, they didn't, because they wanted a bad story, so they just jammed her into that. She never got justice. She served 7 years in a jail in prison, in Japan, and then she went to prison for another 7 or 10 years here in the United States. Tried twice. And everybody shut their mouth because the government could define everything and control all of the information. When they control all the information, you can't defend yourself. I was just in a lawsuit up in Massachusetts. The government, 300 pages, we demanded to have just the judge see. Just the judge. I don't need to see it, nobody else. Just the judge. The judge demanded the White House turn it over 2 times. They eventually they said, over our dead body, we are here with explicit instructions. We are never going to release that. We said, just redact everything that doesn't that doesn't revolve around this particular case. They gave 300 pages. Every word was redacted. How am I supposed to defend myself? Yeah. If the government has control of everything, you cannot defend yourself.
Yeah. Eric, really quickly before we go to break, just wondering, have you been a victim of any sort of suppression?
Well, I feel like it at certain times. There's always funky stuff going on with my channel here and there, and certainly on the vast amounts of different sort of social media platforms that I'm on. I certainly see it happening to other individuals, be it they get banned all the way. Certainly when they recently, I believe as of a month ago, they did some sort of harassment policy change and they took down like hundreds of pages, demonetized. I believe Stephen Crowder was part of that.
Yeah. And it was just for their arbitrary, if you're bad for their community.
And that's the problem. Like it's such, and I think there will be a lot less pushback from creators if they were certainly more, I guess, concise in terms of how they define what's going. And then you could actually, your accuser, whoever it is saying, hey, this was negative content, this violated our rules. Okay, can I talk to that person? Can we figure out what exactly I did? But it's very difficult to get in contact with YouTube, certainly if you don't have a following. And those are the people that I feel sorry for the most. It's easy for guys like, ourselves. We got these blue check marks on Twitter. We can @ Team YouTube, and sometimes they do respond. But who's that other person that's been having this channel for 10 years or something like that? They may not be that popular, but they put a lot of work into it, and then they get banned. Like, what are they supposed to do?
The most important part is the algorithm. The algorithm of stacking stories and voices. Because if they want the Democrat to win, all they have to do is stack their stories against the Republican. Leave stories out, make sure stories don't see the light of day. And no one will know unless you're tracking it like they are at Harvard.
Yeah. All right, what Stu learned from Ilhan Omar when we come back?
Good. You learned a lot. She's like hanging out with the Encyclopedia Britannica.
All right, Stu, I can't wait to hear what you learned from Ilhan Omar.
There's a lot here. There's a lot to take out of this clip. She was at Netroots,
Nation,
and part of the thing I find interesting about this clip is the audience reaction to it. But let me just lay it on out there and watch Ilhan Omar take you to school.
And if you ever think that you have a chance, we're going to treat you worse than a dog. One of our members said to me, if there were dogs in those cages, every single member of Congress would vote to make sure that all of these cages didn't exist anymore. So we live in a society and govern in a body that might value the life of a dog more than they value the life of a child who might not look like theirs.
I think I've heard this from Farrakhan.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think I've heard something similar to this from Farrakhan.
Look, the border situation, there's a lot of stuff that's really rough on the border. There's no doubt about that. And we can talk about that. But that's different from what this is. Because what I find fascinating about this is I don't think there's a human being on earth who could listen to that and think it's worth applause. That's one of the worst points I've ever heard made, because you're pointing out, you're saying, well, I can't believe the people are being held in cages. And if there was ever a dog in a cage, people would rise up. It's like, well, there's dogs in cages all the time.
You go to Petco, you can choose from about 20 that they'll sell you for your house.
Massively common. Have you ever been to a pet store? Like, they're all in cages.
Pets World or whatever. I was just walking by in New York. It was nothing but cages for dogs.
That's where dogs are typically kept in our society. They don't run free like at Chernobyl. It's a different situation here. And like, there's an element of we can certainly make fun of Ilhan Omar for making a terrible point. And I like the fact that she's actually amazed by what a good point it was. So amazed that she brought it up in front of a large crowd, and then that large crowd actually applauded for it like it was a good point.
It's Netroots Nation.
But I mean,
this is about as left as you can get.
I do think the why it matters part of this is not necessarily just making fun of her. It's that there is a very low level of debate in this country right now. The fact that is not something that the person who, I don't know, Daily Kos guy, Marcos or whatever, even he wouldn't think that's a good point. That's below, their worst editor's intern's brother makes that point and does not get clapped. Wild drunk, thank you, yes. Wild hammer.
The dogs in cages. That doesn't happen.
It's really a bad point. And, the fact that they're applauding for it, shows just the level. Any point that says, essentially translates in their mind as, I think it boils down to, in this particular case, that just Donald Trump is bad. Anything that you say on that front is going to get applause. Secondly, it's a step back from just, it's almost like celebrity worship. Ilhan Omar is at a point now with the left in which she's earned this sort of credibility of being willing to stand up and say whatever crazy thing has ever come to any of their minds. And so when she makes a point, it's auto-profound, right? It's profound without any attempt at being profound. And I think that is where we are. And it certainly happens on the right too. You see it with Trump sometimes.
It's not happening to me with you right now.
No? Okay. Well,
it's not.
Believe me, I'm with you on that. No, but Trump will mispronounce a word or misspell a word, and people will assign meaning to it. I mean, the whole Q conspiracy, doesn't it come basically from that? I mean, that's not healthy. And I don't know how we get back to the point where we can all kind of discuss things, with sort of nuance and understanding. But man, I can't even see it from where we are right now.
Yeah, no, that's the problem with this is that, she's being dramatic and she's saying a bunch of nonsense. People applaud it. We talked about this before, in which that's the age that we're in, the social media age, where you can just say whatever. It doesn't have to make sense. If it's Orange Man bad, you get applause, you get the retweets, you get all of that. And my biggest gripe with it, certainly in the aspect of immigration, is that it doesn't, we're not creating any legitimate conversation like sort of what you're mentioning, because we're having to focus on this dramatism regarding the terms that she's using. Even at the end, I don't know if you guys heard at the end of that clip, she's like, people that don't look like them. I was like, wait a minute. Is that what we're actually arguing here? Is that people or they have a problem with immigration because of people don't look like them? I don't really think that's necessarily representative of the actual conversation, but we don't get to have a legitimate conversation so as long as they are being dramatic, and it's very difficult. I agree with you 100%. I don't know how we get back to that, to having some legitimate sort of cordial dialogue about the subject matter of immigration, so as long as people are going to just say whatever nonsense, and if it's Orange Man bad, they'll applaud it.
We have to stop applauding for people when they're just saying bullcrap. You know what I mean? When they're just saying stuff that they know, oh, I'm so brave, I am Spartacus. Don't applaud. Yeah. No, you're not. You're a crazy dude.
I would also maybe I'll push back a little bit in the sense that I agree with her that members of Congress do value animals more than humans, but it's the Democrats who want to make it legal for a woman to abort a baby
but it's
at
also
9 months pregnant.
It's also the Democrats that want to give full personhood to animals.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
But then they're like, in New York, we want to make sure women can have abortions up to birth, but we want to make sure that you're not allowed to declaw your cats.
Right.
Like the priorities there are.
But the thing is that let's use her analogy on the border. If over 1 million dogs were on the border and they are crossing into our country and they're overwhelming our cities, and there's all kinds of, some of them have rabies and are biting people. Some of dogs are crazy and ripping people apart. But the vast majority are the mama dogs with their litter of little dogs, okay? But there are some others. You're damn right we'd be down there with cages. We'd be down there with guns. Shoot them.
Stu.
I mean, it is just amazing because I agree with you. I thought the same thing on the life thing. What's interesting about that is a very somewhat standard argument from the right? Like you guys are prioritizing the lives of animals over the lives of these unborn children.
Yeah, we said that about the claws with cats.
Yeah.
Declawing cats can't do it, but you can use your claws to go in and grab a child.
Right.
But like the fact that she's making that, she seems completely unaware that anyone has ever said anything like that before. It's like, how is this woman in Congress and leading our country, leading one of the two parties, and doesn't know the most basic argument? I mean, look, there are a lot of things that you don't want to keep in cages. Dog is not a good example. Like, it's just like the worst. It's like, hey, let me take the one thing you do keep in a cage and act as if that's a good example.
That'd be like putting an octopus in water.
Right, like, yeah, but they are. They're in water. Oh, I just can't.
I would hate to see if she ever had a puppy. Her house would just be filthy. Because she can't put it in a cage, right? How are you going to house train it? All right, back in a minute.
Soon they're going to let him outside to go to the bathroom. Right? Yeah!
Glenn, I know you did a bunch of fun things when you were out in New York, but one of them was a really interesting podcast.
Yeah, I sat down with Gavin McInnes, and it is funny, really funny, really dangerous, not to me, to him. I mean, he said some things that I just went, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't say those things out loud. But he's just really, really funny and has a lot to say. A lot to say.
And that's coming out this weekend?
Yes, Saturday. All you have to do is go to iTunes, wherever you get podcasts. Just look for the Glenn Beck Podcast. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review, please, because it helps other people find it.
Along with the News and Why It Matters podcast, we are also available on podcasts.
Shut up.
Yes.
Really? Wow.
Yes. You know what else?
In America?
In America, yes.
Okay.
And I guess in other countries? I don't really know how that works.
I don't know.
I don't know how many people we have from other countries just tuning in to watch all about American politics. But you can find us there. I do get some. I get some people.
We actually, there's a few countries that actually care about what happens in America. The rest of them are just like, you think we're screwed up.
Or there are Americans who are living abroad who are really tuned in. Yeah, who are really tuned in. But you can catch the News and Why It Matters on iTunes as well. And just like Glenn said, you gotta rate it and review it. Give us like a 10 million star rating, however high you can go. Don't forget, Overtime starts next. Eric is going to be talking about the $15 minimum wage and what a great idea that is. So you can,
great.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really glad that they're finally doing that. They're finally trying something new. No one here has tried it and had it fail.
No.
So I can't wait. You can go to blazetv.com right now. Use promo code NEWS for $10 off of your annual subscription. We'll see you there.
So in New York, they were saying, we already have a $15. It needs to be much higher.